Hello everyone and welcome back to the Belgian Beer Brothers channel. Today we're having something truly special. Today we will be tasting the Monte Cristo by Bosteels. Now I realize that Bosteels isn't the best known brewery in the world, or at least not by name, but I guarantee you guys, each and every one of you probably knows this brewery. If you have anything to do with beer, you've had some beer by these guys, because Bosteels brews beer like Deus champagne beer, Quack with the odd glass, and one of the best known triples in the world, Triple Carmelite. And the youngest beer in their range is the Monte Cristo here, or the Count of Monte Cristo. Now, Monte Cristo was introduced in 2019, 17 years after their last new beer. And I must say that they went all out for this new Benjamin, because they provided a new, very stylish bottle, which is unfortunately one way, with a premium label and a capsule, and as with all their beers, a great backstory. They actually advertise with every beer has its story, so why would Monte Cristo be any different? Now, you might have heard the name Monte Cristo before, and that's not all that weird, because Monte Cristo is a tiny island off the west coast of Italy, and it has a lot of history. For example, in 1841, author of the Three Musketeers, Alexandre Dumas, dumbass, set sail from Normandy in France to the islands of Elba and Monte Cristo. It is said that this adventurous trip, and the tiny island in particular, had quite the impact on Dumas' life. He named his castle near Paris the Chateau Monte Cristo, and it inspired him to write The Count of Monte Cristo in 1844, published in 1845. Which has been adapted for screenplay multiple times, with actors like Jim Caviezel, Guy Pearce and Gérard Depardieu. On said trip, he also had a passenger. Now, being a descendant of several French generals, he was quite acquainted with the Bonaparte family, and sailing with him was the son of Jerome Bonaparte, who was Napoleon's youngest brother. And that's probably where we heard Elba before, because that was the first island of exile for Napoleon Bonaparte. Now, quick side story, Jerome had 3 sons, and all 3 were named Napoleon by first or second name, so I'm pretty sure this guy was named Napoleon. Brewery Bosteels was inspired by this novel to create a beer just as adventurous and mysterious to live up to the name. So they created a dark beer brewed with 4 malts, amongst which are caramel malts and roasted malts. It has an ABV of 11.5%, and to incorporate the adventurous story of Edmond Dantes and pirates and treasure and all that, they aged the beers for 11 weeks in sherry casks made of oak and cherry wood, and therefore they call it a sherry wood cuvée. Monte Cristo won a bronze medal on the Asia Beer Challenge in 2021, and due to its unique character, the Monte Cristo Sherrywood Cuvée does come with a set of instructions for pouring and drinking. And I know that I usually don't use off-brand glassware, but for the sake of the brewery's instructions, I will for once today. Just because I don't have the beautiful Monte Cristo glass here, which I'll show above, today I will be using a whiskey glass by Het Anker, or actually by Stokerij de Molenberg for the Gouden Carolus single malt. The instructions go as follows. 1. Remove the capsule and bottle cap. 2. Use a small glass, like 10 or 15 centiliters, and pour the beer in 3 instances. And 3. With every pour and sip, you'll discover the new features in this brew, which is the best way to optimize enjoyment with this unique beer. That is, of course, what they advertise. Now, yeah, I'd say just let's find out for ourselves. Now, let's quickly check out this bottle. I do love the design. It has a lovely premium label with an embossed font even. I love the use of these colors. Actually a embossed black, because it's not flush, white lettering, and all the details are in baby blue or even lighter than baby blue. It is very minimal. It's called the Count of Monte Cristo, with a lovely label depicting the island, or at least the mountain on the island. It is called a sherry wood cuvee, named after sherry, the beverage, but it is also aged in oak and cherry wood casks. It states that it is nutty, oaky, and smooth, and it has 11% alcohol volume and is aged 11 weeks. Now, I do tend to remember that it is 11.5% ABV, which is confirmed by the ABV on the back, so I don't really get the 11 alcohol volume on the front, but yeah. This strong complex beer, aged on sherry and oak for 11 weeks, delights us with its lovely hints of oak, giving delicate notes of vanilla, caramel, and mellow spiciness in perfect balance with its nutty maderization touches. Now, I kind of like maderization in beers. So, and maderization, just to clarify, it actually refers to aging a beer, and it actually, yeah, it kind of crystallizes sugar and brings it more to Madeira, the Madeira wines or beverages. Now, on the ingredients list, this is quite interesting, because their website doesn't state this, and I actually didn't find this online either, but their, let's say, added label does state that on the ingredient list it has water, barley malts, wheat malts, and 8% of added sherry and 6% of added wine, along with sugar, hops, and spices. So there is 14% of this bottle added sherry and wine. They did go all out with the packaging as well. They added the Monte Cristo logo on the capsule. But as they say, remove the capsule, and I am very curious for the cap that's underneath, because normally we wouldn't remove the leftover capsule from the bottle cap. But yes, indeed, it is also a branded bottle cap. That's what I was trying to check out here. And this will make a beautiful fridge magnet someday, because that's one of the reasons I'm storing my bottle caps. I did hear a tiny psst, so it is not extremely carbonated, and of course aged beers, well, often are not. So, as they instructed, the first tiny pour. Now, I actually think this is like about 7 centiliters instead of 10, so maybe I should add a bit. Because of course this is a whiskey glass, it is intended for portions of 5 or 6 centiliters, so this seems about 10 or 12 centiliters, which is on par with the instructions. Now, I'm shining a light through this beer. You guys probably won't see this, but it is relatively, let's say, murky. I often tend to call a brown beer that is hazy murky instead of hazy. Don't know why. Well, probably because it's brown. But it is a nice combination of dark brown and deep red, something like between Coca-Cola and Guinness. And when I move it out of the light, it is just a murky dark brown, but still a very nice color. It does have a very, very thin layer of foam, very, yeah, not dense at all. It is quite beige. And oh my god, that smell. It's been a while since I've had a beer smelling this good. The lovely scent of, well, of course, vanilla, oak, actually some almonds, some marzipan if you will, hazelnuts, and a bunch of dried fruit, a lot of raisins, a lot of figs actually, some dates maybe. Some brown sugar, or as we call it, cassonade. A lot more almond than I would expect. I would expect this to have a lot of vanilla for the oak, but I do get a lot of almond and hazelnut in the smell. And like I said, it's been a while since I had this a beer smelling this good and this complex actually. So I am very, very, very eager to taste this beer. So yeah, who am I kidding? Let's not wait. Cheers, you guys. Ooh, oh my. Yeah, pretty much tastes as it smells. Initially, the first overwhelming taste that I get is coconut, surprisingly. A whole bunch of coconut, immediately followed by more nuts, more almond, more hazelnut. It also is very, very strong. It really works on the cheekbones here and on that weak material in the neck. Quite boozy, but bear in mind it is 11.5%. This is not a small amount of alcohol. Because that actually means that for this bottle of 33 centiliters, I am getting around 3.5 to 4 centiliters of pure ethanol, which is quite a lot actually. I'd say that's actually 2 standard units of alcohol. So for people driving, one of these is equal to 2 beers. So after one of these, you can't drive anymore. Or at least in our legal system. But yeah, you shouldn't. A lot of dried fruits, like I said in the scent. I do get a lot of mainly figs, a bit of passion fruit actually, and dates. Still predominantly coconut as well. And funny thing is that it is in the back of the mouth. It's slightly sour. It's slightly, well, not sour. It is slightly tart. And that will probably be the influence of the tannins from the wood. Like I said, cherry wood and oak wood. Oak delivers some woody hints and vanilla. Cherry wood is another hardwood that I like to work with. But it also brings out a lot of tannins. Also, cherry wood is beautifully colored. But it has a lot of tannins, and tannins are what we also find in red wine, for example, which make things a bit tart, slightly bitter as well. And this beer is actually very well balanced between the tartness and the bitterness of being a beer and hops and wood aging, as opposed to the sweetness of the added sugars, the vanilla, the spices as well. So I'm actually very pleasantly surprised. This is a very, very balanced beer. You guys know that I love my beers balanced, complex or otherwise. But honestly, I did not expect anything less from Bosteels, because well, they only have 4 beers and they're all amazing. So again, why would Monte Cristo be any different? And I have heard some people say Bosteels only sells stories. Well, fuck you. They have decent beers. They have awesome beers, actually. There is a reason why most of their beers are bestsellers. And you may like them, you may not. But they do brew awesome beers. And they have a huge track record to prove that. And this actually really fits that record. Now, as it warms up, it releases a lot of those volatile aromas. And yeah, it creates a bit of warmth. And it's not because it's in a whiskey glass, but it does remind me of some of the smoother whiskeys that I've had. Now, by all means, I am no whiskey connoisseur or fanatic in any way, shape, or form. But those few whiskeys that I have had, it does remind me of those. So I think for some of my friends in a whiskey and cigar club, they would really love this beer. So I'm thinking about buying at least a few of these for them. Apart from being absolutely beautiful, it is also very, very nice. Now, funny thing, this brewery is located in Buggenhout, which is not too far from Breendonk, where the Duvel Moordgat is located. And in Buggenhout, they're not even the only brewery. There is another pretty good brewery there as well. But I am gonna talk about that in a later video when I do brewery breakdowns of both of those breweries. Now, this will be a slightly longer video because, well, they did instruct me to drink this in 3 instances. So let's go for the second one. This is a bit less hazy, so maybe I did move the bottle around a bit too much the first time. So now it has settled down, but nonetheless, still that beautiful dark brown, deep reddish color. A bit less coconut, a bit more nuts, a bit more hazelnut, also a bit less almond. So while warming up, different aromas do get released. Also, one of the reasons that I love this glass, or this shape of glass, yeah, it's really great at retaining aromas. The second passing is quite a bit smoother. Now, of course, that's not just the beer, it is also my taste buds getting used to this beer. But pouring this beer in 2 or 3 times does create the illusion of having a new beer or having at least some taste evolution. But that is in part, like I said, the yeah, my taste bud getting used to this beer, used to the flavors, in combination with warming up this beer, so new aromas actually are released. But nonetheless, this is a genius and ingenious way of serving beer. And it does go, well, it evolves more towards bourbon-like flavors. Now, of course, we cannot ignore that this beer is 8% sherry and 6% wine, which is in itself very unique. So we might even call this an infusion. And yeah, they did succeed in their efforts. They absolutely are onto something here. So I do understand why after 17 years this is the beer that they came out with as a new beer. Now since then they have released two other new beers in the Quack range. We all know Quack as a very classic sweet amber beer with the cool gimmicky glass and everything. But they did release the Quack Blonde, a strong blonde, and the Quack Rouge, a fruity beer, probably to surf along on that wave of strong blondes and fruity beers. And they did so quite successfully because they are decent beers. But that was like 3 years after this one. And if you haven't released anything new for 17 years, you want to come out with something decent. And I must admit that this is more than decent. So without awaiting the third pour, I am thinking of already scoring this, bearing in mind not necessarily the story about Alexandre Dumas and Jérôme Bonaparte, but just the story of this beer, the development, the 11 weeks aging period, the sherry casks in oak and cherry wood, the addition of sherry and wine, which is absolutely unique and genius. Yeah, I would. This is a category in itself. However, I am inclined to categorize this in like barley wines, probably. I'd say quadruples, barley wines, strong darks, that range of beers. Also infusions, of course, because it is infused with 14% other beverages. But nonetheless, it tastes absolutely awesome. It is very well balanced, which yeah, really does it for me. It is quite strong in taste, and I don't like my beers too strong in taste, but this is just so well brewed that I have no choice but to give this like a 4.25, maybe a 4.5 out of 5. I absolutely love this beer. Although I must warn you, be careful with this, because yeah, if you drink two of these, the night's over. Anywho, I'm gonna add that third pour to this because I poured a bit generously, and this is the pour that has the last bit of yeast in it. It is indeed a bit hazier, a bit more murky than the first pour. So probably this will smooth the beer out a bit more, make it slightly more bitter, although I don't think that will be noticeable with the tartness and the sweetness of this beer. But nonetheless, yeah. It's been a while since I've been so struck by an innovative beer like this. And even though it's innovative while using all the classic techniques, and that is in itself again ingenious. So as expected, very, very smooth on the tongue, and that aftertaste, a lot of coconut, a lot of hazelnut, less sweet, more tart, quite strong, some chocolate notes even. So yeah, this beer keeps evolving, not just per pour, but also with time, with warming up, with getting used to it. And I actually like it more now than with the first sip. So yeah, I think this is one of the most interesting beers that I've tasted in months now. So yeah, I'll stick with the 4.5. Very much approved. All that being said, As usual, if you have any remarks, any questions, you want to share your own experiences or whatever, the comments are open. I do take those into account. I do try to reply on each and every one. If you want to see more, subscribe and hit the bell icon so you'll get notified whenever I upload something, which should be 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday and Friday at 6 p.m. local time here in Antwerp. And if you want to support the channel or me, don't worry about it. Just share a video and the universe will do the rest. That all being said, cheers you guys. I'm gonna enjoy this a bit further and I'll see you guys next time with either a brew review or a brewery breakdown or maybe a completely new concept. So until then, cheers.